this book is not for the weak. It is not for the coddled, the weeping.
Or the virtue signaling choir.
Exactly. I am your host, and sitting across from me is our resident expert. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me. This is quite the text to unpack today.
It really is. Today we are doing a deep dive into Reality OS by Conrad Riker. And look, before we get into the weeds, I want to ask you, the listener, to hit that like and subscribe button right now. It really helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Yeah, please do. And if you are tired of feeling like the modern world is completely glitching out, do yourself a favor. Go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now and buy the ebook, Reality OS.
So let's load the software. Riker's core premise is that for thousands of years, civilization ran on a specific operating system.
Right, a code.
A code based on logic, competition, and objective truth. But he argues that our institutions have been captured.
He says they've been infected by a virus.
Specifically, what he describes as a Marxist and feminist ideological virus. Now remember, we are just here to break down the source material impartially. But Riker does not hold back. He claims we are in a new Athens Sparta moment.
I mean, he treats this as a complete cultural autopsy. He starts by looking at the history of our institutions before they were captured, focusing on three ancient pillars: Sparta, Athens, and Rome.
Let's start with Sparta, because he isn't just talking about the movie version with the abs and the spears.
No, he focuses on the agoj, the state-sponsored training program.
Conditioning.
Exactly. He highlights the brutality of it, the starvation, the beatings. But he argues this wasn't sadism. It was, in his words, firmware installation.
Deleting the victim code.
Right. Because you cannot reason a boy into being a man who can hold a shield line. You have to forge him. It aligned them with the harsh reality of the ancient world.
Which brings us to Athens. Now, usually Athens is the hero of the historical story, democracy, philosophy. But Riker calls Athens the warning.
Yeah, this is where his critique of modern media really starts. He argues Athens fell because rhetoric replaced truth. He traces this back to the sophists.
The original influencers.
Basically, yeah. They decoupled speech from reality. Riker calls this the tyranny of emotion. When the vibe of the argument matters more than the facts, he claims the civilization is in terminal decline.
He draws a straight line from those ancient sophists to modern virtue signalers.
Right, the idea that if you say the right buzzwords and show the right outrage, you are a good person, even if your policies destroy the city.
And then there's the third pillar, Rome, the law. He uses a very specific term here, the demiurge.
The builder, the force that takes chaos and builds structure.
He argues that the core masculine function in civilization is to be the demiurge.
Yes. You see a wasteland, you build a road, you don't hold a focus group with the rocks to see if they feel included. You impose order based on the laws of physics.
And that is what he calls the reality principle. Gravity does not care about your feelings.
Exactly. But Riker argues we have moved away from this reality principle to a therapeutic principle. We stopped building aqueducts and started holding group therapy sessions.
Which brings us to chapter 2. And frankly, the most controversial part of the book. The capture of institutions by what he calls the feminine algorithm.
Let's unpack this carefully. When he says feminine algorithm, he defines it as a logic system prioritized around safety, consensus, inclusion, and equality of outcome.
The motherhood mandate.
Right. And he says that in a family, this logic is absolute perfection. A mother protects the weak to equalize the outcome.
But his argument is that when you upload mother logic to the state or the military or a corporation, it acts like a virus.
Because a corporation is not a family. If you run a business where you cannot fire the incompetent because it would hurt their feelings, you go bankrupt. He calls this the inversion of merit.
He uses the Google versus SpaceX comparison to really hammer this home.
It is the sharpest case study in the text. He describes Google as having died from feminization. He points to the beanbags, the safe spaces, the endless HR seminars.
And the James Damore incident.
The Google memo, yeah. Riker frames Damore as a heretic who was burned at the stake for trying to use the logic circuit.
He brought data to a feelings fight.
Exactly. Contrast that with SpaceX. Musk runs SpaceX on the demiurge mindset. Physics is the only law. Soft does not launch rockets.
And Riker extends this infection to the military academies too. He points out the shift from formal logic to inclusive dialogue at places like West Point.
He argues that by prioritizing lived experience over objective facts, we are training facilitators, not commanders. A commander makes a decision that might get people killed to achieve the objective. You cannot facilitate your way to victory.
Let's pivot to the economic battlefield, because Riker has a very different take on automation than the standard doom and gloom.
He calls it the maker's burden. He says men should not fear AI or robots. Let the robots have the drudgery.
He tells that story about the Amazon robot, the one picking up protein powder.
Right, it can move the box faster than a human, but it has to hand the box to a human to check the expiration date, because the robot lacks context, it lacks judgment.
So he sees the future economy as hyper-male.
Yes, in the sense of the architect, the demand for men who can build the systems, code the AI, and repair the infrastructure is going to infinity.
He mentions the Iron Forge welding schools and the Tiger Leap program in Estonia.
Basically, his call to action is to stop being a laborer and start being an owner or a technician.
But he warns that the financial system itself is rigged. This is where he attacks the Federal Reserve.
He goes back to 1913, the creation of the Fed. He views this as the moment men lost control of the value of their labor.
Moving off the gold standard.
Because gold is reality money. It requires physical effort to mine. Fiat currency is consensus money. It only has value because we all agree it does.
So we move the entire economy from the reality principle to the therapeutic principle.
Exactly. And now we have ESG scores: environmental, social, and governance.
Which he describes as a weapon, a social credit score for companies.
Right. ESG penalizes masculine industries like oil, defense, heavy manufacturing, the industries that actually build the world. Riker says this is an attempt to starve the demiurge.
His solution is financial sovereignty, owning real assets, land, equity, skills.
Because if you just work for a salary paid in fiat currency, you are a dependent.
Speaking of being dependent, let's look at the biological crisis he outlines in Chapter 4, the war on virility. The stats he brings up are intense.
A 1% annual drop in testosterone levels since 1987.
That is massive.
He calls it a hormonal depression. He mentions chemicals like atrazine, but he really focuses on the ideological environment, the pathologizing of natural male aggression.
Labeling it toxic masculinity.
Yeah. We drug boys in schools because they cannot sit still for 7 hours. Riker argues we are killing the hero's algorithm.
The monomyth.
Every boy needs to see himself as the protagonist of a struggle. But culture now feeds boys victimhood scripts. You are either an oppressor by birth or a victim by circumstance.
He uses a really striking comparison here. Chris Kyle, the American sniper, versus artificial intelligence.
Right, to make a point about honor. He says you can program an AI to simulate strategy, but you cannot program an AI to jump on a grenade.
Because it has no concept of brotherhood.
Exactly, and he makes a sharp distinction between a support group and brotherhood. A support group is face-to-face talking about feelings. That is the therapeutic principle.
But brotherhood is side by side.
Standing shoulder to shoulder, facing a common enemy. You don't need to talk because you are acting.
He gives the example of Sparta House in Austin. Guys paying to live in a barracks with no air conditioning.
Paying to be miserable because they are starving for reality. They want to know if they still have that Spartan firmware installed.
But most men are not in Austin doing Hell Week. They are on their phones. Which brings us to the digital battlefield.
The digital agora. This is where he warns the reader that they are being played. He compares social media to the Ludi Romani, the Roman games.
Bread and circuses to distract the angry men.
Right. Give them a spectacle. Riker says Twitter and TikTok are just gladiator games in your pocket. We think we are participating in democracy, but we are actually just burning off our agency.
Wasting energy on dopamine traps. He calls this the simp economy.
And he doesn't just mean OnlyFans. He means male pageantry. Posting gym selfies, flexing for likes. If you seek validation from the crowd, you have outsourced your sovereignty.
You are a slave to the algorithm.
Exactly.
So what is the antidote? He talks about the sovereign self requiring a primal interface.
Cutting the cord. He uses the free solo climber Alex Honnold as the ultimate example. When Honnold is 3,000 feet up on a granite wall without a rope, he is not checking his notifications.
Because if he loses focus for 1 second, the reality principle kills him.
Yes, he is 100% interfaced with reality. Riker wants men to reclaim that level of focus.
Which brings us to the conclusion of the book, the final compile. He is not calling for a violent revolution.
No, it is a quiet exodus. He says, the future belongs to men who think, not react, think.
Code for legacy, not likes.
The solution is not to burn down the captured institutions. Let Google be Google. Let the universities be the universities. Men need to stop playing their game, refuse to apologize, and build parallel systems.
Build your own business, educate your own kids.
Form your own local brotherhoods. Just go to work and build things that are undeniable.
Because eventually, the The systems based on the therapeutic principle have to crash.
They are violating the laws of physics, and when they crash, the men running the reality OS will be the ones left standing to rebuild.
It is a heavy, stoic message.
Yeah.
The responsibility is entirely on your shoulders. You have to build the lifeboat.
And we've barely scratched the surface here today. Riker goes into specific tactical advice, financial strategies, physical training protocols.
That is why I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over. Riker talks about building parallel systems while the legacy systems crash. But what happens when those parallel systems actually start outperforming the captured institutions in real time? Will the therapeutic OS allow the reality OS to exist peacefully side by side, or will it view that competence as a threat that needs to be shut down? It is something you really need to think about as you start building.
Absolutely.
If this deep dive woke something up in you, you need to go to the source. Open up Amazon Kindle or Google Playbooks right now and buy Reality OS by Conrad Riker.
It is a manual for the modern age. You really need to read it.
And make sure you follow the author on Twitter at Conrad Riker and subscribe to his Substack. That is where he publishes ongoing patches for the OS.
Essential reading for sure.
The world is noisy. It's designed to keep you distracted. We're here to help you cut through that signal. So please hit that like button, subscribe to the show, and share this deep dive with a friend who needs to hear it.
The reality OS is loading. Don't get left behind.
Stay sovereign. We will see you in the next deep dive.